Welcome back, listeners, to this episode of the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and today we are zooming out from the noise of daily life to explore something that quietly shapes our entire inner world. Now, you must have heard about emotional patterns, and they carry or what we carry, without even realizing it. The heaviness that kind of manifests in our body long before our mind can actually make any sense of it. So, today on this episode, we are going to talk about a different way of healing. Not the kind, where you sit down and you retell your trauma story again and again, but the kind where you let your unconscious mind pull out the learnings and release the weight that you have been holding on to for a long time. And listeners, my guest, Melissa Daly, she's an integrative mind-body health practitioner, a trainer of NLP and also timeline therapy. And she's also the host of the award-winning podcast, Don't Wait for Your Wake-Up Call. Listeners, what I love about Melissa's work is she approaches healing not as this, battle or a fight, but as a remembering that everything that has happened in our life is happening for us, not against us, not to punish us, not to break us, but to guide us, teach us, and eventually liberating us. So let's get into this conversation with curiosity, not certainty, not forced positivity, just presence. That's exactly mindfulness is, right, listeners? So with that, Melissa, welcome to the Mindful Living. And as always, it is really an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much, Sana. That was such a beautiful introduction to this work. I truly appreciate it.
Wonderful, wonderful. And in our previous podcast, let me tell you all the listeners that, we had a beautiful conversation on the mindful journey. You can go and check out on all the streaming platforms. But one thing that I really regretted that, we couldn't dive deep more and more into timeline therapy. That is something that really like piqued my interest into it. So today, Melissa, let's explore specifically around timeline therapy, how it kind of fits into the way of mindful living. So when a lot of people hear about it, they immediately think, it's just another framework. But at its core, what exactly it is really doing inside this, matrix of our mind and body?
That's a beautiful question. Timeline therapy is an integration of our conscious mind and our unconscious mind. And our unconscious mind is the home of our emotional body. It is the home of our imagination. And it is that place that we access in the moment of mindfulness. Our conscious mind is the thinking mind. It's the one swirling with all the ideas and the thoughts, and I have to do this and I have to do that we're aware of, that's keeping, we call it the monkey brain because it's always going, right? The purpose of mindfulness is to calm our nervous system and get out of that monkey brain. And when we're getting out of that monkey brain, we're calming our mind. We stop thinking. Guess where we go? We're going into the unconscious mind. And when we're in the unconscious mind, that actually has access to connect to our higher self, or the superconscious mind, which is what many people call it, which has access to our blueprint for perfect health and all of the resources we need in this lifetime to fulfill our mission. Which is why mindfulness is so powerful, because it brings peace to people and it brings solutions, answers that people have been trying to think about and couldn't get to, and now they can get to. And it's only when we slow the monkey mind that we have the ability to bring in the solutions anyway. If you try to flick a card at a fan that's spinning, it won't go in, right? Because it's just spinning too fast, and that's what our mind is like. So we have to slow our mind so the answers can come to us through the unconscious mind. And this is part of where we're using the unconscious mind with timeline therapy, and why it's so powerful, and why at the end of timeline therapy, people say to me, the most common thing is, oh my goodness, it's quiet up here. It's peaceful. It's calm, because so much of what was causing all of the swirling was the stuffed down negative emotions that society has programmed us to stuff down. From the time we were young children, we would feel our emotions, and we would be told, boys don't cry, put your big girl panties on, don't go to your bedroom, don't bring all the emotion here, right? We're told to stuff it down. Even I remember getting into the workplace and being told, don't bring your troubles to work, And so it's such programming to not feel our emotions. And yet our emotions are our body's way of talking to us, one of the ways of bringing something to our attention. And so we're not supposed to squash it down. We're supposed to pay attention and then address it. And yet we don't. And so over the course of our lifetime, all of this stuffed down negative emotion can cause dis-ease in our body. And when we experience trauma, and every single human being has experienced trauma in their lifetime, that gets squashed down too and adds to the dis-ease. And the only solution that is offered in most cases is go to the therapist and talk about it. Talking about it one time in order to bring it out into awareness is very helpful, because we have our own story in our own mind with our own blinders on. And so talking about it one time with somebody else who has a different perspective and can maybe open up those blinders a little bit is very helpful. And then it's a matter of using the right tool for the job to release it from the body. Because talking about it over and over again doesn't serve us. Every time we talk about it, we're bringing the past into the present, and we're reliving it in our nervous system, because our unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and imagined.
Yeah.
And we leave therapy feeling worse, like we've been hit by a truck. And yet we keep going because we're told that's the path to healing. And some people won't go at all because they don't want to talk about it, period. And so they don't get the opportunity to heal. As you mentioned in the introduction, with timeline therapy, we can heal from the trauma, from all of this stuffed down negative emotion, without having to talk about it. And the reason we don't have to talk about it is one of the many jobs of the unconscious mind is to store the memories of every event we've ever experienced in our entire life. So if it already has the memory, it already knows what happened. It doesn't need us to talk about it again. What it needs us to do, as you mentioned, is get the learnings, because everything is happening for us to learn something. That is how we grow. That is how we evolve during our lifetime. And so once we have the learning, then the unconscious mind can say, okay, good. She's got the learning. I don't need to keep storing this emotion here as a reminder that there's still learnings. All of that stored emotion is literally unresolved negative emotion until we get the learning. And the moment we get the learning, it's resolved and it's released from our body. And those learnings can be very simple. I am strong. I am powerful. I am worthy, etc., etc. And when the unconscious mind knows we have the learnings we needed in that moment, it releases the emotion. And what I really love about timeline therapy is how powerful and effective and quick it is. The unconscious mind is always much faster than the conscious mind. And we don't address every time you felt anger in your lifetime. That would take forever. We address the root. Because by addressing the root and understanding the way the unconscious mind stores emotions, which is in something called gestalts, which is a grouping. So all anger is in the same gestalt. All sadness is in another gestalt. All happiness is in another gestalt. All joy is in another gestalt. And think of those gestalts as being like a pearl necklace. And it's just laid out flat. And every pearl on the necklace represents each significant emotional event of experiencing anger. And when we take the very end bead off, the root, when we pull that off the necklace, all the other beads can fall off too. And that's exactly what happens in our unconscious mind when we go to the root cause of the anger. And then we come back to now across our timeline, and all the other beads are released. And now all of that past anger in that gestalt is released from the body. And people feel lighter. And as I said, they feel peaceful in their head. And we do those 7 negative emotions in one sitting. And then we will also do the limiting decisions of unworthy, not good enough, powerless, and unlovable. And all humans encounter at least one of those as a limiting decision that is playing in the back of their mind and their unconscious mind outside their awareness. We release that. We release other limiting decisions that we've developed through the course of our lifetime, building on those ones. Not smart enough, not pretty enough, not skinny enough, not fast enough, etc., etc. And all of this is just releasing that monkey brain turmoil that's been going on for so long and brings peace and quiet. And that is incredibly powerful because we can do all of that inside 2 hours. And it's not that we have you become a robot and never feel your emotions again. We want you to feel your emotions, and we give you the tools in order to recognize that every emotion is serving a purpose and to be able to work with it in order to allow it to process in your body, as opposed to squishing it down and not wanting to feel it. And what I love about this work is that it is so fast, it is so powerful. And because we're not having you become a robot, we encourage monthly timeline therapy cleanups, we call them, because life happens, right?
Yeah.
It also, our unconscious mind is the coach. I'm just the guide when I'm guiding someone through this process. Whatever their unconscious mind says the root cause is of that emotion on the day, that's what we trust. That's what the unconscious mind says it's safe for you to release today. And we do our monthly cleanups because there may be more emotion in between that we need to release. Or maybe now the unconscious mind is ready to take us back further to an earlier event and have us go back into a past life or past generations to release that. As we continue to release all of these emotions, we call it our monthly, self-care for our mind. We do self-care for the body, right?
Yeah.
Now we need to do self-care for the mind in order to keep our mind clear. Because when we release all of this, we can live in a place of knowing we are empowered, of knowing just how powerful we can be and that we can achieve whatever dreams we want to achieve. If we can dream it, we can do it, right? And when we do our monthly cleanups, we keep all of those limiting decisions, all of the negative emotions out of the way so that we can move forward and live our best life. And this isn't taught in our school system. This was so new to me. Even when I was going through integrative health practitioner school, I wasn't taught anything about the power of our unconscious mind. And now that I have these tools, I can use them as needed, not necessarily on a daily basis, as needed in order to support what it is that's going on in my life. With anxiety, we use timeline therapy in the future. Anxiety is all about something that hasn't happened yet. It's worrying about the future. So if we're worrying about something going wrong, we can also imagine it going right. And we're just programmed to go to the negative because of just general society upbringing. And so with our clear the screen method, we literally teach people how to clear the anxiety around an event that has an end date, acute anxiety, like an interview that's coming up. Maybe they have to write. Maybe it's a talk they need to give on stage in front of many people, etc. And we can release the anxiety simply by having them shift their thought from the horror show to the love story. Because as I said, if we can imagine it going wrong, we can also imagine it going right. And so anxiety serves a purpose. It is coming to say, knock, knock, knock. Guess what? You're focusing on the wrong thing. Focus on it going right, and the anxiety goes away. And that's exactly what happens. It's like the rumble strips on the highway. You're driving along the highway and you get a little bit outside the lane and it goes, remind you to get back in the lane. And that's exactly what anxiety is it's reminding you to get back in the lane of the love story. And so again, we use timeline therapy, this time into the future. We take people out into the future, 15 minutes past the end of the event about which they thought they were anxious. And we have them imagine it just going perfectly and seeing everything they can see, the people they're with, the feelings that they can feel, the sounds they can hear. And when they have that perfect image of it just going better than they could have ever imagined, and now they're imagining that best scenario, I have them turn and look towards now, and I ask them where the anxiety is. And guess what? It's gone because it served a purpose. They're focusing on the right thing now. They're focusing on the love story, so the unconscious mind can say, okay, I've done my job. I don't need to be here anymore. I can release the anxiety from the body. So this is the power of these tools. When we recognize that all of the emotions serve a purpose, and we have tools to use to help us release them. And in no case did we ever have to talk about all the negative stuff. We do talk about the positive because that's okay to talk about. We don't talk about any of the negative.
Wow. A lot of questions, Melissa, and a lot of thoughts as well. So I'll first start with the thoughts. First of all, I really, really find it fascinating, how you kind of explain this through a storytelling, where you have these characters here, the pearl necklace, the love story, the horror story. I think it makes it much more easier to, kind of get a very crystal clear idea about how effective timeline therapy can be, how exactly our unconscious mind works, and how consciously we would work about anxiety, about different emotions in there, the 7 emotions in there. So I think, these are like the talking points or the memory cards. So I think that's it's a brilliant way to actually retain, because, I mean, when we are not aware about timeline therapy, it can be very, very overwhelming initially to retain everything. Second, I think what it helps, if I can make an analogy here, it's like it gives us this regulator that, when the fan is full blowing, we cannot see the blades in there.
Right.
And it will look as if the fan has no blades. But when we reduce the speed through regulator, we can see the blades running.
Yes.
So it's kind of,
That's a
okay.
beautiful analogy too. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So when we slow down, we can, maybe it's not seeing. For some people it is. If people are highly visual, maybe they see the answer. For other people, maybe it's hearing the answer. For
Hearing.
maybe it's feeling the answer.
Feeling.
And we can't do it when the fan is running full speed. Absolutely not. Yes.
And also, Melissa, some people, they love being, they would say that I do not want that stillness or that quietness. I want to go through that mess. I want to actually retain those emotions or those memories because they give me that motivation, that fire to go ahead. Now, do you think that timeline therapy is effective for everyone, or it differs, like, from person to person? I don't know if I can correctly frame that question, but, that's what I think.
To answer that, every single human being has an unconscious mind. And therefore, yes, it's effective for every single human being. Does that mean every single human being has to do timeline therapy? Absolutely not. We want people to know it's available as a choice. Some people are already more connected to their unconscious mind, and other people are more in their thinking mind. And so for people that are more in their thinking mind, they can absolutely still do timeline therapy. However, sometimes I might need to give them a little bit of tasking ahead of time to have them practice connecting to their unconscious mind before they come to the session. And when it comes to your question about some people want to hold on to the memories or hold on to the emotion because it gives them the fire, we don't erase the memories with timeline therapy.
Okay.
We're simply getting the learnings from the memory in order to release the emotion from the body. And we do want to release the emotion from the body because that stuffed down emotion causes dis-ease over time.
Yeah.
And we always want to find what is a better way that somebody can have that need met. So if somebody is feeling like that anger that I carry inside me is really fueling me to do whatever, what's a better way that we can get that need met to be fueled besides having the anger stuffed down inside their body? Because that anger will cause dis-ease over time.
Yes.
Then we work with them for that. However, we don't erase any memories. We literally get the learnings, and then we release the negative emotions, which are not serving us. That's why we release those. Even if someone thinks they're serving us, in the long term, they're not. They cause disease, and nobody wants that.
Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. And Melissa, let's say, I'm just trying to put up an example here. I strongly hope it doesn't happen with anyone out there, but unfortunately it may happen. So for a person as a kid, if they have gone through bullying or let's say called out for being nerd or weird and extremely alienated from, the society or maybe friends or community, like sometimes laughed upon, mocked down. And those emotions, they kind of pent up, they kind of get boxed and caged in. And when the person has grown up, they become an adult, they kind of manifest, as you mentioned, like the dis-ease in there, maybe through their actions or through their bodies. How can timeline therapy help in there? Like for this particular case, let's say.
Yeah, it will help because it releases all that they have manifest in all of that time in terms of their emotions, as well as all of the limiting beliefs that they have about themselves based on what they've taken in and heard from other people.
Okay.
And we release it from the unconscious mind. What we also teach beyond timeline therapy is hypnotherapy. And once we've used timeline therapy to release all of those limiting decisions, release all of those negative emotions, we've created all of this space now in the unconscious mind. And this is where we now use hypnotherapy to put in the beautiful suggestions to the unconscious mind about the amazing human being that you are. Because we see the magnificence in every human being. Every single one of us is magnificent. I mean, let's face it, right? From the moment of conception, how many, millions of sperm are secreted, right? And then that sperm met that egg and formed you because you were meant to come here in this lifetime to live Earth and fulfill your mission, whatever that is.
Exactly.
And a piece of that, as traumatic as it is, being bullied, all of that, you needed to go through that in order to learn something in order for you to fulfill your mission. And perhaps that is to then help other people going through bullying. Perhaps there's something else that you were meant to learn in order to fulfill your mission. And when you can look back at what happened with gratitude, that's when you know that you've truly healed. Because it did happen for a purpose. And I know it sucked when you were going through it. And I know we're on victim island and feeling sorry for ourselves and it feels awful and it's horrible and we have no friends and I'm all isolated. However, when we can come to a place of releasing all the emotion and releasing all those negative thoughts, we can come to a place of recognizing, oh my goodness, this was meant to happen to me so that I could now be here doing this. And I feel so fulfilled because now I can do this and I'm helping other people. And that's the power of this work, is everything is happening for us to learn something, even all of that situation that you described. And this work allows us to work through it and come to a place where we can actually be grateful for having gone through it, because we are a stronger, more resilient, more powerful, more confident person as a result.
Exactly. It helps to be empowered in the present, not maybe get stuck in the past or not be anxious about the future. It actually be in the present. And I think that's how it ties to the way of the mindful living.
And the other thing I just want to add there very quickly is I'm not doing anything to anybody or for anybody. I am simply the guide and your unconscious mind is the coach. And if you are willing to be coached and surrender to the process, all you have to do is follow my instructions and play along. It's fun. You're using your imagination because the unconscious mind is the home of imagination. And if you're willing to surrender to the process, your unconscious mind is the coach and you get the results.
Makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. Melissa, before we wrap up, I think this is a very beautiful question. Mindfulness, it teaches us to be with what is, and timeline therapy, it asks us to revisit what was. how do these two approaches work together, without overwhelming the nervous system? So now there's this nervous system here also in the conversation.
Yes. And so my answer to that is that mindfulness, as I said earlier, is tapping into the unconscious mind. And when we use our unconscious mind for timeline therapy, it has a very specific purpose. And in that moment, yes, we are going into the past. And we're not firing the nervous system in any way, shape, or form. If the person is listening to the instructions and following the instructions, we're floating above our timeline and getting the learnings. And that doesn't fire the nervous system at all. And then we come back down into the present. And so we are moving in the timeline and going into the past to clear what is no longer needed. So very specific purpose. And then we come back into the present. And at that point, then the person can continue with their own mindfulness work and focusing on the present. And I highly recommend that.
I think it's a very interesting balance, very, very interesting balance. It's like this, it's a flow that, you clear what's there in the past, not erasing it, but kind of, clear it and
No longer serves, yes.
yeah. And then you work on your present. You get
Yes.
back to your present.
Absolutely. And this is the cycle of our work as well. So all of our NLP tools, neuro-linguistic programming, are working on the present. And then we use hypnotherapy for the future. As I said earlier, putting the suggestions for the person you are becoming and serving you in the future. So yes, we're definitely looking at past, clear the past, focus on what's happening in the present. What can we do in the now? Giving people tools they can use in the now. And then also tool for the future, which is hypnotherapy.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, Melissa, if listeners, I'm very sure they would like to explore further into this. So, if they would like to connect with you, and you also have the award-winning podcast, they would like to listen to you, what would be the best way?
So our website is amplifyimpactacademy.com. And there you will find our programs as well as our Quantum Life Mastery School, which is our full program. We have a monthly free workshop called Meet Your Unconscious Mind Workshop. If people would like to come and learn more about their unconscious mind, you can find that on the website. Our email address is info@amplifyimpactacademy.com. We have a YouTube channel where we do our clear the screen demos. We also do a live demo at each workshop. And we've just launched our clear the screen podcast as well. And then I also have my Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call podcast that people can find both podcasts on any podcast app.
Super, super. Brilliant. Listeners, I'm going to have all the links in the show notes. So go do check out the Meet Your Unconscious Mind workshop and check out through the website. I'll have all the links in there along with this episode and in the description section if you're watching this on YouTube. And I really feel that this was such a grounding conversation. It was a practical yet very human-centric conversation because healing isn't always dramatic. It isn't always loud also, but many times it's a moment of understanding. Like it's your unconscious mind letting go while you are just trying to breathe through the day. So, Melissa, thank you so, so much. You really, really brought such a beautiful clarity and balance here because for the fact that I know there can be a lot of misconceptions, especially around these modalities. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sana, for having me. I just want the world to know that timeline therapy exists and is an option on their healing journey.
It is. It is.
You're helping me do that by having me on the show. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you to all the listeners for devoting your time to listen to this podcast, to this episode and watching us on YouTube. And if you're thinking right now that I don't know if my pain had a purpose, that's absolutely fine. That's okay. You don't need to rush to meaning and you don't need to talk your way into closure. But you just need to stay open to the possibility that your body already knows the way home. You just have to listen to it. So if this episode resonated with you, sparked something within you, share it with someone who might need a gentle nudge toward their own healing journey. And leave your thoughts in the comments section. Let us know what you liked or subscribe to us because that helps us keep running the wheels here. And until next time, this is your host, Sana, signing off from the Mindful Living. Thank you.